In this video, we'll be exploring the secrets of the Moai, a series of massive statues found on Easter Island in Polynesia. Since their discovery in the 1800s, there has been much debate about their origins. Some even claim they were built by aliens. If you're interested to find out more, let's dive right into the video. First up, what exactly are the Moai? Statues, yes, but what sort of statues? The Moai are huge human heads made of stone. There are nearly 900 of these figures on Easter Island. They're scattered on the flanks of the island's extinct volcanoes. The figures average 13 feet in height and weigh 14 tons. Here's a curious fact about the Moai. Quite a lot of people think they're just stone heads, but that's not true. Most Moai have whole bodies hidden beneath the ground. Another interesting fact about Easter Island is that it's in the middle of nowhere. The nearest country, Chile, is 3,500 kilometers away. How did the inhabitants build and transport so many of these massive statues with limited technology? We'll touch on that in a bit. Speaking of transportation, the people of Easter Island were either incredibly strong or incredibly intelligent. You can't lift a 14-ton stone block on your own, especially with pre-modern technology. In 2012, the archaeologist Carl Lipo proposed a theory. Together with 18 other volunteers, he demonstrated a system of ropes tied around the top of a Moai statue. This allowed the workers to rock it back and forth across the island, kind of like making the statue walk. Of course, this still takes a lot of effort for one statue, and there are over 900 of them. Maybe the settlers didn't do it all by themselves. Some people also believe these statues were built elsewhere. They would then be transported to the island via advanced alien technology. The construction of the massive pyramids in Egypt raises similar questions. You can check out our previous video on that topic. We'll drop the link at the end of this one. It isn't just the geographical origin of the Moai that's mysterious. Many experts are still stumped by their purpose. A common theory is that the Moai were sculpted for religious or ritual reasons. Researchers believe that each statue represents a deceased head of a family or clan. The inhabitants of Easter Island once numbered in the thousands after all. Conspiracy theorists believe these Moai are statues built to honor alien visitors. As mentioned, Easter Island is pretty remote. Surviving out there isn't easy. The settlers may have received help from more advanced beings. In return, they built the Moai as a tribute to their saviors. Or maybe the aliens built the Moai as a reminder of assistance rendered. The statues appear to be inhuman, with some having very large eyes. Was that what the aliens looked like? Nobody knows for sure. Another point of debate is about the Moai stoneworking techniques. Many of them appear to be wearing large stone blocks that function as hats. These may appear to be ordinary blocks at first glance, but further inspection reveals something interesting. On the hats are carved, strange petroglyphs. What do they mean? Scholars are still unsure, but it's an eerie coincidence that some symbols resemble flying craft. It's also fascinating how the Moai are sunk so deep in the ground. Even setting aside the transportation that we discussed earlier, digging such massive pits is no mean feat for Stone Age civilizations. Nearby, there's also another strange stone construct that may point to the work of aliens. It's called the Vinipu platform, seemingly used for rituals. The platform towers over humans and is constructed from perfectly interlocking blocks. It's interesting to note that a similar construction method was employed in ancient Peruvian fortresses. Conspiracy theorists believe that aliens have assisted various cultures around the world. This fact seems to back their theory up. As for the settlers, the fate of the island natives remains a mystery to this day. The island was definitely inhabited at one point. It wasn't a temporary building site or stopover. Evidence for this can be found in the remains of pottery and utensils left behind. But the inhabitants themselves seem to have disappeared altogether at one point. Were they uplifted by their alien overlords? Some speculate they may have all died out due to infighting. The presence of weapons scattered about haphazardly seems to indicate this. But what caused such severe conflict to destroy this island civilization? Author Jared Diamond believes that this infighting was caused by the natives themselves. He claims they ruined their environment via overexploitation. In their need for farmland, firewood, and devices to move the Moai statues, They stripped the forest bare. Once the forest disappeared, so did the wood for boats, along with most edible birds. The fish died, the soil eroded, and crops wasted away. Faced with the lack of resources, this society fell to infighting. To quote Diamond, it was the clearest example of a society that destroyed itself, overexploiting its resources. On the other hand, some researchers believe that rats were to blame. They say the original settlers had rats aboard their ships. These Polynesian rats reproduced easily with no natural predators on the island. Excavations show the inhabitants made rats a steady part of their diet, and yet, it wasn't enough to stem the tide. In time, the rats overran and destroyed the environment. Or perhaps the alien overlords grew bored of their project and decided to pull out. Regardless of the cause, life seems to have become intolerable for the surviving settlers. With greatly reduced numbers, continuing life there was impossible. Whoever was left likely departed, never to return. Perhaps they found new lands or were taken up by the aliens to spare their lives. Did aliens build the Moai Statues? Were they responsible for the disappearance of the islanders? The truth is still out there waiting to be discovered. For now, archaeological research continues on the secrets of Easter Island.
In this video, we'll be taking a look at the lost civilization of Atlantis. What is Atlantis? Atlantis means the island of Atlas in ancient Greek. It's an island mentioned in the philosopher Plato's works, Timaeus and Critias. In his writing, Atlantis is an antagonistic naval power that besieges ancient Athens. This version of ancient Athens isn't the historical city-state itself. Instead, it's an embodiment of Plato's ideal state that he describes in the Republic. In the story, Athens repels the Atlantean attack, while all other nations fail. This proves the superiority of Plato's concept of a state. Despite their advanced technology, Atlantis fails to conquer Athens. The story concludes with Atlantis falling out of favor with the deities. It then incurs their wrath and sinks into the Atlantic Ocean. According to Plato, who lived in 360 BC, these events took place more than 9,000 years before his time. What's strange is that in that 9,000-year gap, no other writers wrote about Atlantis. Could there have been a cover-up? Influence on popular culture. Atlantis wasn't a major focus of Plato's work. It was there as an example to prop up Athens. Despite that, the famed lost civilization has had a considerable impact on the public consciousness. The allegorical aspect of Atlantis was explored by several Renaissance writers. This includes Francis Bacon's New Atlantis and Thomas More's Utopia. On the other hand, 19th century amateur scholars took Plato's words literally. They interpreted them as historical traditions. Ignatius L. Donnelly argued for the existence of Atlantis in his book, Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. Plato wasn't really specific with the timescale and location of Atlantis. All he stated was that it existed more than 9,000 years ago, beyond the Pillars of Hercules. This gave rise to much speculation. Creative minds have also used Atlantis in numerous media. For example, Marvel and DC both wrote about separate, distinct versions of the famed underwater kingdom. As a consequence, Atlantis has become a byword for any supposed advanced prehistoric lost civilizations. It continues to inspire contemporary fiction, from comic books to films. The search. Over the centuries, archaeologists and other curious individuals have attempted to locate Atlantis. Numerous teams have claimed they've found the city's location. It's popped up everywhere, from Antarctica to Bolivia to Turkey and even the Caribbean. In the years after Columbus brought news of the New World back to Europe, many claimed that America was the fabled Atlantis. But the search gained steam in the 20th and 21st centuries. Most seekers take Plato's directions to heart. In front of the mouth, which you Greeks call the Pillars of Hercules, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together. These descriptions led archaeologist Merlin Burrows to the Spanish coast near the Strait of Gibraltar. There, his team found potential clues. This included large circles that were the bases of ancient towers. They believed these ruins to be the famed Temple of Poseidon. There was also a greenish-blue patina coating some of the ruins. The team also found the remains of a long seawall, as well as signs of a tsunami. This could be evident by the cataclysmic event that drowned the society of Atlantis. Some searchers also point to historical evidence of a volcanic eruption in 1600 BC. This eruption destroyed parts of the island of Santorini, wiping out Minoan settlements. Perhaps the destruction of Atlantis was a retelling of these events. In 2018, another team announced with much fanfare that they had found concrete proof of Atlantis. Their key evidence was a series of circles in a national park in Spain. Unfortunately, those circles turned out to be a modern construction. They were experimental ponds created in 2004 and 2005 for a study involving zooplankton. Till today, no team has found concrete proof of Atlantis. Advanced tech. According to Plato, Atlantis possessed technology superior to their neighbors. Their city-state consisted of concrete circles and towering temples. Due to their superiority, they conquered many other nations. Scholars believed this merely meant that they had better swords and shields, but some theorists claim that Atlanteans had everything from flying machines to communication devices. One notable example that Plato gave was their orichalcum pillar. Orichalcum means of unknown origin, referring to the composition of the metal. It was placed in the center of Atlantis. On this pillar, their laws were inscribed. The pillar shone with a reddish light and was associated with the god Poseidon. Present-day metallurgists believe orichalcum was a mixture of copper and zinc. This would have made it sturdy, and the pillar would shine brightly when illuminated by sunlight. In 2015, some divers discovered ingots of orichalcum in a Greek shipwreck, but that raises another question. Zinc doesn't exist freely in nature. It has to be processed from other sources. The people of that time didn't have such technological prowess, so where did they gain the knowledge from? Perhaps the gods taught them. Ancient Sumerian myths contain a similar motif, where the gods descended to teach man gold mining techniques. We've covered this in a previous video. Conspiracy theorists believe these gods were aliens helping humanity advance. Though, if Atlantis had such advanced tech and the help of aliens, why didn't any of that save them? Or maybe they were saved. Some theorists suggest that Atlanteans fled and scattered across the world. There, they would use their advanced alien tech to uplift local civilizations. If the Atlanteans were also alien hybrids, they could have intermarried and spread their genes further. For thousands of years, stories about Atlantis have captivated the public imagination. It's safe to say that lost civilization is of great interest to everyone. As for firm evidence of its existence, there is none yet, unfortunately. Still, archaeologists are always ready to jump on any potential leads. Maybe they'll discover something new in time.